If you don't stand for anything, you will fall for everything. That's a quote by civil rights activist Malcolm X. Malcolm X, A Message to Grassroots, was a remarkable speech because it created unity during the civil rights movement, a time of turmoil. Malcolm X was originally born Malcolm Little. However, he changed his name to Malcolm X after learning that his grandparents received the name Little from slave owners. Malcolm X was born to Earl and Louise Little on May 19, 1925. However, when Malcolm X was 6 years old, his father died. According to infed.org, he died from unknown causes. However, after learning and much discovery, he learned that his father was really assassinated by a white supremacist group. His mother, however, was entered into a mental institution when Malcolm was 13 years old. This caused Malcolm to be orphaned at a very young age and begin living with a white Baptist family. When Malcolm was in 8th grade, he had dreams and goals of going to law school. Malcolm X was a very smart student, very bright, and very intelligent with many high goals. However, when he was in 8th grade, his teacher told him, law school is no realistic goal for a Negro. This caused Malcolm to be infiltrated with much anger, hatred, and frustration, and he ran away from home and moved to New York. When Malcolm moved to New York, he got involved with many crimes. He became a drug dealer. He became involved with prostitution and gambling and hustling. Malcolm soon became a cocaine addict and a thief and robbing many different stores. At the age of 19, he was sentenced to jail for 6.5 years. While in jail, his cellmates called him Satan for cussing and cursing at the Bible and at God. While Malcolm was in jail, he became very peaceful as the time went on. He began learning more about religion and reading and self-educating himself. He became intrigued with the religion of Islam and learned that Islam was a very peaceful faith. He described Islam, I quote a quote from him regarding the Nation of Islam saying, "I'm a Muslim. It's a religion that teaches you an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It teaches you to respect everybody and treat everybody right." This really touched Malcolm X because he has been oppressed all his life. So this religion really taught him that no matter your political differences, your historical differences, your race, your gender, it doesn't matter, that you treat everybody right. And he really agreed with that. When Malcolm X got out of jail, he began ministering and opening up religious temples. He even became the national representative of the Nation of Islam. This is the second highest ranking behind Muhammad, which was very important to Malcolm X. Now that I have talked about his biography and his religion, I will move on to talk about his speech, A Message to Grassroots. Malcolm X, A Message to Grassroots, was a remarkable political speech that took action against racial oppression. This speech was held November 10th, 1963 at the King Solomon Church in Michigan. He's speaking mainly to black people because it is at a black convention. A Message to Grassroots was astonishing because it was very pragmatic and open-minded, and it created unity among many black people. Malcolm X's A Message to Grassroots changed many stereotypes. He starts off with describing the common enemy and says the common enemy is pale with blue eyes and white. He is describing the white man. He then emphasizes to the black people there that they are a family and that they need to be working together, not against each other, in order to achieve equality. He then emphasizes that this era is not a revolution. Many people during this time period were calling it a Negro or a Black Revolution. He begins to explain that a revolution involves bloodshed and involves land. He remarks and calls back against many historical events involving a revolution. And all those historical events involve bloodshed and land. So he clarifies to the black people there that it is something bigger than a revolution. He then goes on to describe and justifies his reasoning for being violence against white people in America. He says if it is wrong in America to be violent, then it is wrong in America to be violent abroad. If it's wrong to be violent defending blacks, then it is wrong to draft men and women in defense of her. He describes her as America. He is basically clarifying that if black people cannot defend black people in America, then why are Americans defending Americans abroad? Many people were very open-minded with this statement and agreed and were very responsive. He then goes on to describe the field Negro versus the house Negro, and describes Martin Luther King as a house Negro, one that agrees with the white people and feels like they should not take action against them, that they should be peaceful with them in order to achieve equality, whereas the field Negro should take action against white people and be aggressive if they want to achieve equality. He critiques a march on Washington, describing it as a bunch of clowns at a circus. Many people were very responsive to this speech and agreed for the most part. However, many whites were very unresponsive, and he received many death threats from the white people. Martin Luther King was then assassinated on February 21st, 1965. Now that I have talked about his speech, I will talk about how his speech created unity during the Civil Rights Movement. His speech created unity during the Civil Rights Movement because he brought together what he describes as the field Negro and the house Negro. He contrasted the ideas of many political leaders during this time, such as Martin Luther King. He clarifies to them what a revolution is and why it is much different than a revolution. This speech really helped progress the civil rights era because it made people more inclined to learn the real issues going on. I then quote a quote by him: "You cannot separate peace from freedom because no one can be at peace until he has freedom." Thank you.